I'm back catfishing guys and stealing their fishing spots. Today, I'm checking out a suggestion from mid-2025 that until recently I thought was illegal. You see, someone suggested I go to the Yaquina Lighthouse, and I get it. I'm posing as a cute girl visiting Newport. Who really wants to get all dirty and salty on the first date? Most guys would rather take me to a cute lighthouse where we can walk around, go on a tour, and maybe even get some lunch at the Chinese spot down the road. It would be a really cute and sweet first date, but I don't care about any of that. I was interested in the spot because the lighthouse sits in the middle of a marine garden. And this may come as a surprise to most, but ODFW allows shore fishing at marine gardens unless stated otherwise. However, that unless stated otherwise is actually doing quite a bit of heavy lifting here. You see, unlike almost all of the state's beaches, this is restricted federal land and is not public access. The people managing the lighthouse can make whatever rules they want, and when I initially tried to fish Cobble Beach, I was chased away by the security guards. Now, I assumed they had a blanket no fishing rule, so I just left the spot alone. Now, just for fun, I came back at the end of the year and talked to the security guards. I wanted to see if I could launch a floaty from the beach, but to my surprise, they gave me even better information. They allow and actively encourage fishing, but from Quarry Beach instead. Now, if you're new to fishing, these types of spots are almost always gold mines. You see, marine gardens tend to have a lot more fish than a typical beach, and the access fee substantially limits the number of fishermen. I always say that fishing is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will. No, wait, that's not right. Anyway, I always say that fishing is 5% luck, 5% skill, and 90% just being in the right place with the right bait. I knew this was going to be an incredible spot, so I came back in the morning and set up for a fun live stream. Now, just a quick note for the rest of the video, some of my GoPro footage corrupted, so you'll see me alternate between the HD GoPro footage and the low quality TikTok live. I'll do my best to keep the segments relatively coherent, but there will be some jarring cuts coming up. Anyway, I brought two poles with me. My handy cheapo pole, which frankly needs to be replaced soon, and my heavy duty catfish pole. My logic is simple. This reef should host a lot of greenling, rockfish, and sculpin, and they don't need a heavy-duty rod, but their predators like lingcods may also be patrolling, and reeling them in with a grit stick is... oh, it's an adventure, alright. Anyway, I set up the heavy-duty rod with heavy line, a herring, and a cannonball weight. I'll probably be harassed by the crabs, but there's nothing I can really do about it. Wait, you don't know why the crabs matter? Well, sit down, take out your notebooks, because I'm about to drop some knowledge on you. If you're lingcod fishing at the ocean floor with a dead bait, you're going to have a problem. The lingcod would love to eat your herrings, but the crabs will probably beat them to it. They'll pick it apart, avoid the hook, and leave nothing for the lingcod to bite. However, if you instead replace your weight with a metal crab snare, give yourself a couple feet of slack, attach the herring, and then attach a float above the herring, you create what I call the double trouble rig. The crab bait will sit at the bottom and snare the crabs, and for the crabs who don't get snared, they're not going to go for the herring. Crabs don't like to swim. It's when they're most vulnerable. If there's delicious food above and delicious food below, they'll stay on the ocean floor and eat through the crab trap. Anyway, on top of this, the crabs are the lingcod's favorite food. So the commotion will probably draw in some lings, maybe give them a few easy snacks, and then once the rest of the crabs scatter, the ling will see the herring. Essentially, you don't lose your bait to the crustaceans, and they end up working for you, not against you. Best of all, if a lingcod doesn't show up, well, you'll probably end the day with 1 or 2 legal dungees and you win anyway. Anyway, back to the marine garden. I mentioned this is a problem here. You see, marine gardens were set up to protect intertidal invertebrates, and this rule is meant for clams, tide pool critters, and mussels, but it accidentally protects the dungees, because if I were to send a crab snare out and reel it in, I would reel it in through the intertidal area, and Dungeness crabs are invertebrates. Even if I don't intend on keeping the crabs, simply showing up with a crab snare is going to get me in a lot of trouble. I'll just have to cast the herring rod out, hope a ling is in the area, and if not, I'll just rebait and try again later. My other pole will have a pretty fun rig. It's a double high-low, and this is because I want to test something. You see, I recently started curing sand shrimps, and this is because I want to see if the fish prefer them live or cured. I started rigging the shrimps and casting them out, and while I was getting bites, they weren't the kind of bites I was hoping for. These bites were small, so small that in most cases, the bait would come back only half eaten. This means one of two things is happening. One, these are highly pressured fish that get overfished all the time, they're super cautious. Or two, they've never seen a sand shrimp before, so they're cautious. We both know this fishing spot sees virtually no action, so let's just rule out theory number one. I'm also far away from the bay and there's no mud in sight, so sand shrimp are probably pretty rare here. I think it was just the wrong bait for today. Now don't get me wrong, I did end up hooking and reeling in a greenling, but he was so small, I didn't want to pull him up the rocks and just let him shake off in the water. Fortunately, I did bring a secret weapon with me. This bait is probably the only thing I won't share with you in a YouTube video. It's a really specific bait prepared in a specific way that makes the fish go absolutely crazy. I set it up on the rig, cast it out, and just 55 seconds later had a big greenling on. Yes, fishing actually can be this easy. Now, this fish was definitely a keeper, so I reset the rig, moved locations, and cast out again. Less than a minute later, I could feel a fish on my bait, so I waited for it to take the hook, sunk it, and reeled it in. Now, instead of a greenling, this was a relatively rare cabezon. These fish used to be pretty common, but due to overfishing, their numbers have tanked. In fact, illegal cabezon is about 10 times rarer than illegal lingcod, and you guys know how much trouble I have catching those. Now, the way you tell them apart from other sculpin is by running your finger along this part of the fish. If you feel scales, it's probably an Irish lord and you can keep it. If you don't feel scales and feel a catfish-like skin, it's a cabezon, and you better triple check the regs to make sure it's legal to keep. Unfortunately, this one was clearly undersized, so I tossed him back. We now have 2 fish in less than 2 minutes of bait in the water, so there's only one thing left to do. I moved spots, reset the rig, and cast out. This time, I didn't feel the fish bite, so I have no idea when it took the hook, but when I got bored and checked the line just 2 minutes later, sure enough there was another greenling. I reset the rig, moved locations one last time, and cast out. This time, the bite was almost instant, but the fish dove into the rocks. I did my best to unsnag my catch, but it tangled me good, and I eventually just had to break the line and lose the rig. Now, remember what I said earlier about right place, right bait? My skill, my gear, and my setting have not changed in the last 30 minutes. Instead, I switched from a bait that the fish were not used to a bait which the fish are used to and go crazy for. Boom. Instant catches. This is also why I tend not to give specific advice to viewers. You see, if I'd taken these sand shrimp closer to the bay where the fish are used to eating sand shrimp, I would have a lot more action and my secret bait probably wouldn't even work. Now, if I'd gone to that beach before showing up to the live stream and just grabbed a few sand fleas, I guarantee the greenling here would gobble them up like candy. Your local fish will have different habits, they'll be used to eating different food, and so the techniques and rigs I am using probably won't work for you. If you take the time to learn what your local fish eat, learn how to harvest it as bait, and learn how to present it in a way to hide the hook, you will eventually stumble across your own secret bait. Now look, I could go back and reset the rig, but I think I made my point. Instead, I broke down the greenling pole, rigged up the herring pole one last time, and started to pack up. Alright, the herring pole, I haven't talked about it. Yeah, I've just been resetting it throughout the session, but the stupid crabs keep taking the bait, and there's really nothing I can do about it. I'm just hoping that all the fish commotion might bring a predator into the area, but after another 5 to 10 minutes of waiting, I knew it wasn't going to happen. By the way, if you're wondering why I let so many of my favorite fish go, this was filmed back in 2025, and the bag limit was only 3 fish in total. If you remember, I caught a keeper in episode 1, and I caught a keeper earlier in this session, so if I kept any of those small greenlings, I wouldn't be able to keep fishing. If you want to see what I caught at spots later in the day, make sure to drop a like and sub, and I'll see you next week with part 3 of the adventure.